everybody. Today I thought I would do a vlog on a subject that I've never covered before, but it came up with the last vlog I did, which was my journey, the doll collector's journey. And I mentioned that during this sort of evolution of my doll collecting that I had sold off a great deal of my collection. And the kind of comments I got back were all over the place, but it was really nice to hear that I wasn't alone, that people were changing, and you change your taste in dolls. Some people aren't even in dolls anymore. And the subject that kept kind of coming to the top for me was seller's remorse. Seller's remorse. And somebody asked me, do you ever miss some of the dolls that you sold? And the answer is yes. And the reason why I have Pull-Up Ruriko here is because she is a prime example of a doll that I sold, and then I didn't necessarily regret it because one of my best friends in the world had bought it from me and then sold it back, which is awesome. But it was a doll that I thought, wow, you know, it took a lot to get this doll into my collection. She was always just so glamorous, and I sold her. I was happy. I was okay with selling her. But when my friend was kind of going through her own journey and thought, you know, I'm going to part with this doll, but before I sell it, let me see if Angela wants her back. And I just jumped at the chance. So welcome back, Ruriko. So I just wanted her to say hi. She's so pretty. She's so glam. She still could use like some pants, but that's okay. I'm going to put her down. So the topic of seller's remorse. I think I did a video on buyer's remorse. So when you buy something and you immediately think, oh, why did I spend that money? Or I really wish I would have gotten this doll instead of this one. Or I don't really like this doll. Why did I do this? And that's one thing. I've been there a few times. But I haven't experienced a lot of seller's remorse because during the time that I was selling a lot of dolls, I haven't sold many. I don't think I've sold a doll in quite a while because I'm really happy with the collection that I have and who I'm adding to it. But there were a few dolls that kind of slipped through, that didn't make I have this process, right? So the process went something like this. At the height of my doll collecting, when I had this massive collection, I would from time to time notice that there's that back row of dolls that never gets to the front, that I don't pay any attention to, that I never took pictures of, or dolls that were in boxes that never saw the light of day. And every once in a while I would go through those dolls and I'd think, let me spend a little time with them. I had this shelf, and you know, I would love to hear if you have a similar type of process where you go through to sell a doll. But I would take the ones out that I thought, these are not getting a lot of love. Let me put them out on a shelf where I can see them, where I will be walking by them every day. They'll get a little more attention, and really try to spend a little more time with them. Take pictures of them, change their clothes if you do that. And I did that with quite a few dolls. And what I found was, you know, I change a wig, or I change some eye chips, or I customize them just a little bit, or I change them up. And that would completely change my view of a doll. And I'd think, no, I remember why I bought this doll. This one has to stay in my collection. Or I see a doll, it stays out on the shelf for a week, and I think to myself, somebody else would really like this doll more than me. Either way, most of the dolls that I sold in the big sale, there were some comments in that last vlog where people said, oh, I remember the big sale. I bought some of those dolls from you, which is awesome. Yay. I hope you post those on Instagram or Facebook. So there were quite a few dolls that I sold, and I was really pretty happy with the ones that I did sell. There were a few exceptions. I can tell you that Eve Sweet, that one I sold, and I thought, oh, I kind of want her back in my collection. She had the pink hair, she was very floral. And Kore, Pull-Up Kore, which I think is still on Pull-Up Style, so I'm always like, I sold it, do I buy it again? Like what? Um, anyway, so there are a few pull-up dolls that I sold that I don't necessarily regret or I feel grief over, but I think I was probably a little hasty to sell it, or somebody came to me and said, "Will you sell me this doll?" And I thought, "Okay, yes," without thinking through it. Anyway, so I guess I'd like to know how you feel about selling and buying dolls if you have a process of doing it. So the last vlog I did, I kind of went through how I'm just a little more discerning about the stock dolls that I buy from Groove. And it has to be, something has to speak to me. And I will tell you that there are kind of a backlog of these newer releases that I think are very pretty, and I might eventually add them to my collection, but the more that they come out, the more I feel okay with not having every doll in the world. I'm also really, really careful now about the dolls I sell, because if anything, it's not so much remorse, it's more like I don't remember the dolls that I sold. That I went through so many, I know, nice problem to have, that I don't think I gave especially any custom or customized dolls the kind of attention that they needed for me to even make that decision of should I keep it or not. So I don't experience a lot of seller's remorse, but there are certainly a few times that it's happened and it never doesn't sting. So one of the things that I noticed in the comments from the last video was people going through a situation where they feel compelled to sell their entire collection, not necessarily by choice. So it's one thing, I think, if you're like, well, I haven't looked at these dolls in 2 years, I'm not interested in this anymore, and it was an investment and I can sell them, make money, and then put that money towards something I do enjoy, but more maybe financial. I know a handful of people who have been in a situation where they are financially in need of funds, and so they sell their entire collection and it breaks their heart, or they're downsizing because they have to move or something like that. And those are the ones I think that really stick with me the most, because I think in life, you are often in a situation where things change and you do have to make some hard decisions. And one of those decisions might be to part with something you love, like a doll or a doll collection. And, there's nothing really you can say to that except be supportive. Another situation that I've seen quite often, and I've experienced it myself, is mental health. So I've seen people who are in a state of depression, or they're just not in a good place mentally, and maybe the dolls represent something at that time that makes them sad, or they feel I need to cleanse my life, or I don't get joy out of these dolls anymore, but I'm really not feeling great anyway, and I think I just want to get rid of them. I always try to tell those people, just pause for a minute, no sudden moves, because that's when you don't want to regret selling everything. That's when I say, why not just pack them up? If you've got the room, if you don't necessarily need the money at that point, just pack them up and focus on yourself. I mean, I've done that a few times where I've been like, you know what, I'm just going to get rid of my entire collection. And I'm glad I didn't. So I don't know if I'd call that advice. But if you are finding yourself in a place where maybe you're in a situation where the people around you aren't supportive, I think that's fairly common. And you think, this is so frustrating. I love these dolls, but my parents or my friends think it's weird, so maybe I should just sell them. Just pause. Don't do it. Don't just go and sell your entire collection, unless you absolutely have to for money. Anyway, so I just wanted to share that with you because it's been something on my mind, especially since Ruriko came back, where I thought, I didn't realize how much I actually missed this doll. And what are the other dolls that I missed? And I don't regret any of the actions that I took, but I might have handled things a little bit differently if maybe I had a voice in my ear say, are you sure about that one? Or do you have to sell a third of your collection? Or whatever it is. It just, I think it would have been nice to talk to somebody about it. And I really did that big sale in a vacuum. I really just packed up dolls, didn't really tell anybody, and then blah, did it. And even my friends were shocked. They were like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop, 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 stop. You're crazy. Or the prices that I was selling them for. Anyway, so I just wanted to share that with you and ask if you have experienced buyer's or seller's remorse, because I think it's fairly common in this hobby and we don't talk about it a lot. Or, you know, we see friends struggling, or, you know, financially or mentally, and I don't know if we ever really talk about it. So if you have tips, if you have advice, if you've been in a situation yourself, or you supported a friend or a fellow Dolly collector whenever they come to this type of place with their collection, I would love to hear about it, because I do read your comments. I just think they're marvelous, and it also makes me feel a little more normal about my collecting habits and my mindset. So anyway, share what you have. Love to hear from you, and we will talk next week. Thanks.